What's up, y'all? Tim Bratz here. Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Tim Vitale, who is a rockstar multifamily investor. He actually was helping out, paying attention in the real estate space in some very active multifamily groups. And about 3 years ago, he came out to a pop-up mastermind that I hosted. He had quit his job, I think the Friday before. We were hosting the event that weekend or early the next week. And over the course of the past 3 years, he's acquired over 2,000 apartments, specifically in the LIHTC space. So we're gonna be sitting down with Tim, hearing about how he's been able to scale so quickly, why he likes the LIHTC space, kind of what his goals are over the next 12, 24, 36 months, where he really sees a lot of opportunities over the next couple of years. Tim Vitale, how we doing, buddy?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Dude, welcome to Charleston. We got a big day tomorrow with you and the team. Just kind of doing a deep dive into your business and everything that's going on there. Tim was kind enough to bid on a one-day consulting with our entire team here in Charleston to go over just a deep dive of his business and everything that they've going on. He's been growing like crazy, doing amazing things in the real estate space and helping a lot of people also along the way, which so I think one of the catalysts to your success. And we'll dive into all that stuff in a second. But from that, he donated over, $15,000, $20,000 or something to charity, which went to Ayla's Foundation, which is near and dear to our heart, and helping kids with cancer and being able to help their families as well. So appreciate you doing that, and just excited to have you here, though.
Yeah, man.
So let's talk about how you got involved in real estate. First of all, like fast forward today, you're at 1,600 units. It's like probably a whirlwind of everything that's happened over the past several years. I think for a lot of people, it's hard to see 1,600 units into the future. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to when you had a day job, right?
Yeah.
And when we first met, and some of the things where you're trying to get a grip of, like, what do I want to do, and what are my goals, what are my ambitions, and how do I put that plan in motion? Let's talk about what was going through your head back then.
Yeah, so I was assistant VP of finance for a Fortune 500 insurance company on Wall Street in Manhattan. I worked remotely from Charlotte. I lived in Manhattan for a little while. But ultimately, I got a raise when I was promoted to AVP for like 3%. So I went from making $99,000 a year to like 102, 103. And I was like, wait a second, this isn't the Kool-Aid that I was supposed to be drinking. Mm-hmm. I was like, when do the 50, 100% raises start coming? And my boss sat me down. She's like, that never really happens. I was like, this is not what I want. Like, I looked at, I was like, I don't want what you have. Okay? You don't seem happy, and I'm connected with a lot of people, and I was like, there's got to be a better way. Mm-hmm. So my family's into real estate in Connecticut, where I'm originally from, and they own like a lot of mixed-use properties and small multifamilies, like residential multifamily stuff. So I was always around it my whole life. My grandfather and his brothers owned a bunch of commercial real estate and hair salons and multifamily properties and things. And like each one of my uncles were a tradesman. So like one was an HVAC, one was plumber, one was an electrician. Mm-hmm. My dad was like the handyman, Mr. Fix-It-Do-It-All. So I had been around it my whole life. I'd been doing siding and roofing and hardwood floors with my dad when I was 10 years old and things like that. So I was comfortable with it and I was familiar with it. And the Catalyst book that everybody talks about was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that in January of 2019. Mm-hmm. And that's when that light switch happened of like, hey, like I can do something different with my life. And I knew real estate, and I was like, okay, let's go down the real estate path. So I started listening to podcasts. I think 2019. So 2019, that was January, and then it took me about 11 months to buy my first single-family house. I ended up getting burned on the appraisal, and long story short, when the appraisal came back in after I had done my work and I was going to flip it and be the best BRRRR investor ever, there was the comp-based approach and the income-based approach. Yep. And me being a finance and accounting guy, I was like, how come we can't use the income-based approach? And the mortgage loan officer goes, no, that's only for five unit properties and up. So I was like, I gotta figure that out. Yep. And I read David Lindel's Multifamily Millions book in January of 2020, and that's when I cut the cord with the single family stuff and I went all in on multifamily. And it was probably right around that time when I found like your YouTube and your Facebook group, when it was mostly public. All your YouTube stuff is public, and you're very active on social media to begin with. So I just watched all your content, really, from 2020. And one of the resounding messages that you always said was, you got to focus on your network. So that's what I did. I focused on my network, and I, got in with a lot of great people. And I didn't really bring a whole lot of value to start, but I just showed up all the time. I was there. I was willing. I was able. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be involved. I wanted to make a change in my life. And I just surrounded myself with amazing people. And that's ultimately how I got into my first deal.
So how did you do that? How did you specifically surround yourself with amazing people?
So there's two characters individually, Jennings and Yaden Smith. They were starting a Facebook group, and I was just present all the time. I showed up on every single call. I participated. I was just there. I asked questions. I gave feedback. And what was value to them at that time was growing that Facebook group. And looking back at it, I know that now, but going through it, I just did it because I genuinely wanted to. Principles of the go-giver, really, at the end of the day. So I just genuinely wanted to be involved. And one thing led to another, and they were coming out with a course, and funny enough, they sent me the underwriting file because they knew I was good with underwriting and financials and things like that. And I literally called Jennings, and I was like, you can't sell this. This is garbage. And I took his Excel file, and I completely remade it from scratch. It took me like 2 or 3 months to do. And then I gave it to him, and I was like, here, I made this for you. And he was like, wow, this is incredible. And he was like, let me pay you for it. I was like, no, I don't want it. Like, I genuinely wanted to help you. And then that was kind of like one of the catalyst things that got me into my first deal. Because then it was like maybe 6 months later, I closed on a deal that they invited me in on the GP team to like help with capital raising and asset management and things like that. And then from that point on, it just kind of snowballed. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. And I think that's like the resounding message that I hear is just like leading with value, right? And just giving, not even asking for anything in response. So that way, all of a sudden people think like, I have to get and I have to take and I have to extract all the time whenever they go into these different groups and these different networking events and all these things. Like, let me pull as much as I can. Dude, by leading with a giving muscle, all of a sudden, man, people are like, wow, this is somebody I want to do business with. This is somebody that, I want to surround myself with because it's different, it's new, it's just a breath of fresh air when you go into these networking things and somebody's like actually trying to help as opposed to just trying to take all the time. And you've done a phenomenal job of that, man. It's just sitting in the right rooms, right? We always talk about get yourself in the right rooms, and you were in growth-oriented rooms, people who had ambition, who wanted to do good things, big things, and figured out a way that you could provide value to that group. And you're like, hey, I'm good at finance. I'm good at underwriting. I can offer some ideas. Regardless of, I think, where you are on the journey, you can always put the hand down and help some people up to where you got.
Always
right?
throw the rope
So
down.
even though you had 5 units, 10 units, 50 units, 100 units, you're like, oh, well, I'm not at 1,000 units yet. Well, there's a lot of people who aren't at the first 2 units, right, that you can help, or the first 10 or first 50 units that you can help along the way, and realizing that, hey, just sharing your journey and sharing some of the learning pieces as you're going along, it resonates with the people who are behind you, and it resonates with the people who are ahead of you because they see that you're a giver and you're ambitious and a go-getter and looking to do some big things. So it's really cool to see how that's, being able to take a 20,000 foot view and see from 2020 to 2024 what you've been able to do in 4 years just by leading with value. So commend you for that, man. So at what point were you like, oh, okay, I'm a partial GP in this deal. Help raise some money over here. I know how to raise money. I know how to underwrite these deals. I'm figuring out how to find these deals. At what point were you like, I could do this on a full-time basis?
So it's actually, I give all the credit to my wife on this one. It was, it was Friday, August 13th, 2021 that we closed on that first deal. And it was about 3 weeks later, my boss called me and she was like, hey, everybody got to go back to the office full time. And my wife had just quit her job because she wanted to start this entrepreneur journey. And, I had a pretty decent paying job. So she quit her job and started out this business. Well, then my boss called me and
working in the real estate.
No, she was completely different business, but I just wanted to illustrate that she was like kind of in that entrepreneurial mindset. So then 3 weeks later, my boss called and she goes, hey, everybody's got to go back to the office. And I was like, I'm going to get fired for not doing my job because I'm focused on doing real estate stuff. I'm talking to brokers and investors, and I'm on, different phone calls and Zoom calls and things like that in order to be involved in what I wanted to be doing. So I come downstairs to tell my wife what happened, and she goes, let's sell the house. And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, how much equity do we have in the house? And I was like, maybe 150 grand or so. She was like, let's sell the house. We'll sell everything in the house. We'll downsize into an apartment. We'll move back to the beach where we want it to be. And she was like, that's 2 years that we could live off of the money. And if we can't, and then I was like, well, if I can't put any money into the bank account in 2 years, it was never meant to be. Now, we also had two other deals.
You can't go and generate enough revenue in 2 years.
Right, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
And we had 2 other deals under contract, and I was like, I think this is the runway that you're always talking about. I was like, I think this is like the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is my pivotal point of do I jump or not? And you either got to burn the ships and do it or don't, right? It's the put up or shut up moment. So we did that. We sold it
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool of your wife to be able to support you and be like, hey, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so I mean, to answer your question though, there was never a point of like, I know I'm gonna be successful. It was I'm gonna take a bet on myself and see if I can be successful. So it's a little bit different than what you asked. So that was September, I quit my job. September, I went to the Legacy Lodge. You know, it was like, I quit it on a Friday, and then Monday we were at the lodge. And then, you know, that's where I made a lot of connections and things, like, you know, still people I talk to this day. And you know, a month later than that, we sold our house and moved everything to Wilmington, and then it just been pedal to the metal the whole time for the last 2.5, 3 years.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. So what has been the catalyst? So you've seen a lot of different things. You've gotten pretty good at finding deals. You've gotten pretty good at raising money. You then started your own Facebook group, right? And so what has that opened up?
So I started that group in May of 2021. And I was a part of your group, and I was a part of Jennings' group, and ultimately I wanted a place where I can give my value. Like I wanted a place to talk. I wanted a place to bring my value, because my message and my experience and my perception is different than yours. And it's different than Jennings, and it's different than everybody else that does this. And you have to get over that limiting belief that the market's saturated and there's not there's too many Facebook groups or whatever. I wanted something that I could call my own, that I could provide value in any way, shape, or form that somebody wanted to receive it. And I just did it out of the goodness of my heart, because I was like, somebody needs to hear what I have to say, regardless if it's the same information regurgitated a million different times or a million different ways. It's going to hit differently for some person at a different point in their journey, and it's up to me, it's my duty to make sure that I'm that person needs, because that's the go-giver mindset, right? Like always just thinking about how can I provide value and not get anything in return. And then one thing led to another. We started closing a lot of deals. I posted about it in the Facebook group, and then people start reaching out. They're like, hey, how do I learn to do what you do? Like, can you show me? Can you teach me? And, you know, I'm sure, you know, you've been through this before where, you know, everybody wants to take an inch when you know, you try to give a mile. Go read this book, and nobody does, right? So then I ended up coaching a couple people, and then they're like, dude, you should charge people for this. Like, what you have to say is very valuable. And so I ended up making the coaching group, and then I partnered with my partner. His name's Tim Vest, so it's Tim, and Tim now. But
it's gonna get confusing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's gonna be confusing tomorrow, but there's a lot of Tims in this world. And that's really what gave me a platform to kind of, you know, portray my message, but also attract people to me for the coaching group, for, you know, brokers that go on Facebook. They're looking at who are gonna buy deals, or who's gonna sell the deals to. Investors. I mean, I raised I don't know, like maybe $12 million or so in the last couple of years, 100% from Facebook. And I tell people that, and they're like, you didn't do it from LinkedIn? I'm like, no, I hate LinkedIn. It's the worst. You know, Facebook has a much more personal feel to it, and somewhat a lot more informal, and I like that about it. It works for me. So, you know, utilize those social media outlets, because what do you say? It's the ninth wonder of the world or whatever?
Eighth wonder of the world.
Eighth wonder of the world, yeah.
Eighth wonder of the world, man.
If
you're using it the right way.
Yeah, if you're
right. It's also a time
consumer.
suck. It could be a huge energy decreaser, but if you're using it for marketing purposes and you're very intentional with your social media of just, you know, focusing on the people that you want to do business with, right? People that can help you source deals, people who might be able to joint venture, people who are contractors or subs, or, you know, somebody that you can work with, private investors, like entrepreneurs, like that's the people that I'm always working with and trying to connect with on social media, and in a very intentional way, right? They might be really good at making money. I'm really good at multiplying money. You know, and so if we can then link arms and charge at this thing together, we can build more wealth for everybody.
Right, absolutely.
So that's cool, man. So what has been your focus in the marketplace, right? Like you got involved, you went all in 21, right before interest rates started going like this. And right before all the quirkiness happened with operations and with bad management. Dude, these management companies are being exposed all over. I can't wait for my management software to come out and just like get rid of property. Like I want to wipe the face of the earth of bad property management companies. It's like I'm so over dealing with management companies. That is my goal with this property management software. That's all AI based, and just how you can manage now internally and in-house with your own staff and fully control it. Keep more money to the bottom line. Look at the P&L and figure out how to increase income, decrease expenses, and everything else that comes with that. Like I'm fired up for it. But dude, I know that the struggles that I had over the past, and I've been buying apartments since 2012, right? And so, what was that like getting into the marketplace right as 22 and interest rates started increasing and insurance costs started increasing and the money started drying up from the Fed's printing cash and like all that kind of stuff? And how have you navigated that?
It's been tough, man. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's why I'm here, right? To kind of talk about things that we're struggling with and things that we're doing well as a management, because we have in-house management as well now. But in the beginning, third-party management served its purpose, right? Like we utilized them because I needed to focus on the two revenue-generating things, which are deals and money, right? And deals and investors. So we outsourced the property management, but then as we kind of took a shotgun approach to multifamily, as everybody does, and then we figured out what our niche is, which is really LIHTC affordable housing. We couldn't find a management company that specialized in LIHTC affordable housing, so we had to create it ourselves. There are a lot of people that can manage LIHTC and affordable housing, but they didn't do it to the quality and to the standard that I wanted done, or they didn't focus on it. That's all we do is affordable housing LIHTC, right? So like, obviously, as you know, being on the other side of the coin is if you focus on one thing and do it really, really well, you're going to do it better than everybody else. Instead of, taking this approach of like, I'm just going to get any property management company in there, because you fall out of compliance with LIHTC and you can get in trouble pretty quickly. And LIHTC apartment complexes are not the low-hanging fruit. It's the high-hanging fruit. It's the property that when somebody sees it hit their inbox out of a LIHTC property for sale, they don't even open it, right? That's where that's what we said. Was like, hey, this is where we should probably spend our time and focus on, because it's something that nobody wants to look at because it's difficult. It's not easy. So we created the systems and the people and the processes in order to manage them effectively. And as we continue to grow and scale, we're like, okay, well, we thought we did it right, but maybe there's some other things that we can take advice from other people on in order to make it even better, right? But in terms of like property values and taxes and insurance and debt, it's like it's been a bumpy road the whole time. I mean, you really got to be creative. I mean, we've done a lot of seller finance loans. I mean, 8 figures of seller finance notes. And the insurance thing is the only thing I haven't really been able to solve for. But we did switch over to a master insurance policy that saved us about $400 to $500 per unit per year, which is substantial. It's big. It's very big. So that was a big success, but it took me a year to kind of do all of that. But one thing I do like about LIHTC properties and affordable products is you're kind of protected on your taxes and your debt lines. I mean, the 3 major expenses that you pay: taxes, insurance, and debt, right? So we're protected on our property taxes because they're assessed as affordable products. So they're assessed on their...
Are you buying them after those are about to expire, or are you buying them like
right after like the 15-year initial compliance period, and then we'll own them. We'll try to run them through the QC process in order to get them out of LIHTC and then sell them as market rate. But a lot of properties, they're just under market rates because people that built them didn't really understand how to continue to increase the value and the income on them. So we have a business plan in place that does that and captures the loss to lease in a very effective manner that most people don't really know about. So it's kind of our, maybe call it proprietary business plan or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so the property taxes were assessed on an income-based instead of a sales approach, right? So we can appeal our taxes and get them reduced generally 20, 30, 40%. Insurance, we really have no protection on. We're actually kind of most exposed in insurance because when insurance companies hear Section 42, LIHTC, affordable, whatever, they don't want to touch it because they statistically have higher claims ratios. But then on the debt rates, I mean, as they continue to go up, we continually see like 50 to 100 basis points less in rate and higher leverage and higher amortization periods on affordable products. So it kind of helps balance out and really kind of protects you in a couple lines on the expense.
Yeah, man. No, I think you found a great niche, and that's why you're having so much success. Whenever a lot of people got spread thin. They're in all these different asset classes. They're trying to buy businesses. They're trying to do real estate. They're trying to do commercial real estate and residential real estate and still maintain a flipping business and a wholesaling and all this other stuff, man. It's like figure out what one or two things are really going to focus, that you can focus your efforts on, and then just go deep and heavy into one of those two things. And then, when I say two things, the reason I'm not saying one is because I do think you need like a fast cash, like a quick money, that if you needed to go make X number of dollars in the next 90 days, you could do that. And then the long-term wealth, right? I think too many people focus on either just the cash, and it's usually transactional, it's usually one time, there's no enterprise value to it. And then other people, which was me initially, I was way equity focused, and I was always cash poor. And it wasn't until I had each of those different businesses that it allowed me to then be more dynamic in my business growth, because I had the safety of having some fast cash and still working on the enterprise value of building the business, So tell me, like, you're in the affordable space. I think there's going to be there's already a huge undersupply of affordable housing. And when I say affordable, this isn't like Section 8, like, a bunch of grants and things like that. We're just talking about people under a certain income amount and under a certain dollar amount per unit. Like, you physically cannot build houses for under $300,000 anymore. You just can't do it. So houses aren't being built for under 300 grand. But when the average income, household income, is $75,000, they can't afford, people can't afford anything more than $300,000 either. So you've got this huge stress that's happening in the marketplace right now of no housing that's affordable, meaning under $300,000 a house. And I'd say under $200,000 per unit in the multifamily space, $150,000, $200,000 a unit. And yet housing is getting more and more expensive. Wages are not growing. Nobody's building more affordable housing. How has that affected your business, and how do you see it affecting your business over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years?
So with LIHTC affordable housing, in your example of the $75,000, average median income, LIHTC is designed in order to help the people, right? Because averages mean there's people below and above, right? So LIHTC helps the people that are below, because it says if your average median income of the area, and it's very local, is $75,000, and you have a 50% AMI unit, then if market rents...
Explain what AMI is.
It's average median income. So if your average median income is $75,000 and your average rents in the area are $1,000, just for easy math, and you have a 50% LURA, which is a land use restrictive agreement covenant, which is attached to the LIHTC. I know that's maybe a little too technical.
No, it's okay. We can get technical.
Yeah, all right. So, the LURA says that you have to rent it to people that qualify for a 50% AMI. Well, if the market rents are $1,000 and you have a unit that's 50, you can only charge $500 a month in rent. So the way that the government supplements and incentivizes builders to build for LIHTC affordable housing to help those below the AMI is they give grants and credits where you can take that money, you can sell the tax credits and depreciation and build, your properties for very, very, very low cost, and typically with no money out of pocket, because you would sell the tax credits to like a large corporation or something like that. But then you have a 30-year restrictive agreement on your property that says you have to comply with these rules and regulations.
Is it 30 years?
So there's two periods. You have a 15-year period, initial compliance period, and then after the 15-year period, the standard period is 15 years, but I've seen properties as far as 25 years after the first 15. So, you could have a property that's in it for 40 or 50 years.
I usually see, from a property tax standpoint, as like, we will just assess it at land value for the next 15 years, and then it goes up to whatever the regular property tax. And so I see a lot of LIHTC builders selling right in that 13, 14, 15 year mark.
That's exactly when I buy it.
Right, which is when you buy it. So you got a newer product, which is awesome, but you are still constrained on rents.
Correct.
For another 15 years potentially.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any tax advantages for you
No.
beyond that?
No.
Other than you're buying it for $50 a door on something that's brand new construction that's probably worth $150,000 a door.
Correct.
If you can turn it back into a normal, a market rate rent.
Absolutely, 100% correct. So, like a recent example, we bought a property at $75,000 a door, and the rents are anywhere from $1,000 to $1,400.
Currently. Which makes phenomenal sense.
But just nobody wants to touch it because it's LIHTC and they don't understand it.
So does LIHTC, does that need the inspections like Section 8 does, where they come in, they're making sure that,
So even worse, they audit you.
Okay.
So they'll come in and they'll audit your financials and they'll audit your TICs, which is your tenant income certifications. Because every year when your tenant renews their lease and you have to offer them a renewal, they still have to qualify on their income to live at that property. So you have to recertify every year that
So
they
if
didn't
they
get a
make
raise
more
or promotion.
money,
Yeah, then they might get the
have
boot.
to get move out.
Potentially, yeah, potentially. So you have to
Is that a
make good
once
books
a
and
year
records.
process?
Every time the tenant
they're-
renews.
Got it.
Yeah, so I mean it happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I have a HUD property, which we have to verify income every single month.
Wow.
Dude, and it is a nightmare.
Yeah, we didn't know that. We don't do that.
That's why HUD properties are very, very tough, and you got to have like a certain management in place for those. We didn't know going in, and the seller hid it from us, so it ended up being like a big issue.
Yeah.
But it's not. To verify income, you're signing a new lease anyways, right? You're having the conversation anyways. Hey, I just need these couple of other items, pieces of paper. Submit that to me, so that way you have it, and you can hand it over to
That's it.
LIHTC whenever they come into audit.
Yep, and we've gotten to the point now where we have our own in-house LIHTC compliance department. So we have one person that handles all of our renewals to make sure that everything's up to compliance, to make sure that we have all of our financials done, and if we ever get notified that they're going to come and audit, it's usually a 15 to 30 day window where they say, hey, we're going to come audit your books, and we're going to audit your ticks and all your on-site records and all that kind of stuff. So
what about physical condition of the property? Are they coming and doing inspections on that too?
Yeah, they check it for health and safety as well. I mean, they do financial audit, health and safety. Yeah,
Got it.
inspections.
Got it. But basic stuff, right?
Yeah,
like they're,
right.
They
As
got
long
it.
as you're taking care of your property and your tenants, you'll be okay.
And you got a newer property anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff that we buy is built between 2006 and 2008 right now. I mean, so what does CapEx look like for me? We're typically really looking hard at the roofs because we replace a lot of roofs now.
20 years?
15, 20 years, so we budget for a lot of roofs and HVAC systems. So what we deal with that is we have in-house HVAC certified guys, and we just pay like $2,000 for the materials, and then our labor's like $30 to $50 per hour versus paying a third-party contractor like $6-7 to come replace it. I do it for like $2,200.
Yep. No, man, it's smart. And you're looking at the biggest line items on your expense sheet and saying, how do we reduce this, or how do we internalize this and take a little bit more control over it, man? It's a basic smart thing that most people don't do, though. So how do you think things are going to shake out over the next 2-3 years?
Honestly, we're getting hammered right now in terms of property values. I mean, taxes increase, insurance increases, debt rates keep going up. I think in the long run, we're going to be okay, right? I mean, real estate over a long period of time is very forgiving. I think that I'm hopeful that this is the bottom of the market with interest, with the Fed anticipating to cut rates very soon. I hope this is the bottom of the market, and over the last 18 months, we've doubled our portfolio, right? So I'm hoping that all the pain and the heartache and the difficulties that we went through in order to get deals to work, we still underwrote them to make them work at our debt and options terms on that day. But if things start to swing in our favor over the next 3 to 5 years, I mean, we're going to be laughing about it ultimately, right? I mean, and that's where I'm hopeful that the market is going to go. Yeah,
man, I think it's very important for people to not make bad long-term decisions based on short-term circumstances, right? There's a lot of weird stuff going on right now. There's a lot of different variables, different levers that are, or arrows that are getting thrown at us. But what does it look like? Is it a good decision to, scarily sell right now or force a buy right now? That might not be a good decision in the long term. I don't know. It might be a good decision, might not be good. But it's like, don't make long-term decisions based on short-term circumstances, And I think if you're always thinking about what's best for the long term, what's best for the long term, what's best for the long term, then you're going to make better decisions in the moment as well. And I do believe if you can get through this next 6 to 12, maybe 18-month period, I do think it's going to be a little bit stagnant, maybe. But dude, I think it's going to start ripping again.
Yeah.
In late 25, into 26, 27, 28. And I think there's going to be a lot more of these government credits in order to incentivize. There's going to be a lot of government incentives that you already see them talking about it on the news and stuff to build more affordable housing, which just doesn't exist. County of Charleston, City of Charleston is giving grants to builders to go and buy land to then build affordable housing. I don't know what the restrictions are on what that looks like, but they're essentially giving builders free money so that way they can go buy land at these inflated prices and get their cost basis down, where now it makes sense to build an affordable price point, and they can then rent it for $1,000, $1,500 a month instead of $2,000, $2,500 a month because of that difference in the grant money, and then it creates more affordable housing, right? And so I think there's gonna be that. I think you're gonna see a lot of 40 or 50-year mortgages that start popping up too. Dude, there's gotta be flex from a lot of different places. Hopefully insurance starts bending a little bit. I think you're gonna see more of these master policies, captive insurance policies that people start bringing in-house. Government financing options, right? Government grants. And because otherwise, man, it just doesn't make sense. And there's gonna be so much of a dichotomy there that like, what do people do? So it'll be interesting, but I think, yeah, if you can stay strong over the next 12, 24 months, I think probably on the shorter side of that, 12 to 18 months, I think there's going to be some shots in the arm in a good way of adrenaline and excitement for the market and for real estate for the second half of this decade. Yeah,
I think the hardest thing that we've dealt with is managing investor expectations. You know, with how the market went from 2019 to 2021, 2022-ish, everyone's used to those, 12 to 24-month flips, you know, and doubling, tripling their money. And then you come to this peak, and now you kind of, come down a little bit, and it's pick your heart, right? It's like you either have a hard conversation with an investor of, hey, we underwrote this. Some of our properties, for example, had 300% increases in insurance. Nobody would have ever underwrote that, right? And it crushed property values. And everyone was like, well, you said you were going to refinance and return 100% of my money. I'm like, well, that's changed because things that I can't control changed. And I was like, but let me remind you, we did sign up on this is a 7-year investment. I'm sorry that the first 2 years are a little bit rocky, but it wasn't like the 2 years before that. So it's been difficult, right, with some properties that haven't been paying their preferred returns, having difficult conversations with investors to set expectations with investors of like what we're dealing with today in today's market versus what we thought we were dealing with, and where do we think the market's going to go. And to your point, I mean, a lot of these deals we're refinancing, maybe we're anticipating returns 75 or 80% of investor cash, and now we're returning like 10 or 0, right? But that's okay. Their money is safe. It's still working. They're getting their preferred return. We're putting 5-year debt on here, and the consensus across the board is, within 5 years you could be in a completely different market. So it's been difficult, right? I mean, that's definitely the hardest thing that I don't know if you've dealt with the same problems.
Dude, I'm about to go do an update right now for some investors, and the exact same thing, right? It's okay. Here's the good news. You're invested into a fixed asset.
Correct.
That is a good property in a good area that's well managed, and everything that is within our control is firing on all cylinders, right? The limitations are these external factors that we're getting hit with. And we're taking arrows all day, every single day. And I think investors, especially passive investors, they don't realize how hard it is to be an active operator and how much shit we got to shovel and headaches we got to deal with and all the different problems that we have to solve on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's our job to educate them on some of that. Not in a complaining matter.
No, not at all.
But like, I want you to realize, here's a couple things that we've been dealing with this quarter. Dealt with this happening, that happening. Had an insurance claim because a friggin' building burned down. This happened and that happened and blah, 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 and all these other. But here's how I sandwich it with the plan moving forward, right? What you don't ever want to do is take a problem to your investors and not have a solution or some sort of plan in place of like, here's how we're going to attack it, and here's how we're going to fix it. Here's what we dealt with, here's how we fixed it to this point, and here's how I see it shaking out over the next 6, 12 months, whatever that looks like. And I think, again, going back to that whole, you're in a good property, in a good area, and if the worst case scenario is that I can get you 40% of your money back instead of 100%, but you're still making a 10% return on the remaining 60% of your money.
You're still doing all right.
You're doing all right. And by the way, rents grew. The only reason, like the equity's there, the only reason we're not able to return it is because interest rates are high, LTVs are low.
Very low.
Right? And the debt service coverage ratios are expanding a little bit, which limits the amount of leverage that you can then pull out of the property. And so, like the equity's there, we're getting 60% LTVs instead of 75 or 80% LTVs, and that's the difference, right? Guess what? We're still in for 80 cents on the dollar on this deal, or 75 cents on the dollar on this deal, but our LTVs are just shot right now. And so, I can either get you a little bit of your money back right now, and then we can wait another 5 years when the term renews, or we don't give you any money back right now, and we just wait another 3, 4 years and hope the market changes. I think it's better to have more predictable expenses as all these adjustments are being made. And so whenever you can fix your debt and get out of a bridge loan, get out of a variable rate loan, and even if you can get a little bit of money returned to the investors,
it's a good thing.
And then just lock it in, dude, I think that's the best bet.
Totally.
You know, I will say we're not locking in long term right now. Everything that we're refinancing is, we're looking mostly actually at CMBS loans.
Yeah.
CMBS loans allow us the highest leverage because it's usually a lower debt service coverage ratio. And it's interest only for like the full 5-year term.
Yep.
And so we're doing 3 to 5 year terms with CMBS, and we'll just eat the I think they're all 5-year actually, but we'll just eat the prepayment penalty if we sell in year 3 or we finance in year 3, and it is what it is. But dude, I think it's good to have fixed rate as you kind of move forward. Will rates drop? Probably, and I'll be like, oh well, shit, I should have tried to time it. Dude, I don't have that information or that crystal ball right now. So I'm going to make the best decision with the information that I have at this time, and that is to lock something in at interest only, because I do think rents are going to go like this, and I think we're going to find ourselves in a position where, as the dollar keeps on deflating in value, that means it's going to take more dollars to buy that same asset, which if you can lock in the price of a dollar today, and as the dollar devalues over the next 5 years, even if rents only increase nominally, the dollar is going to devalue considerably, and so you're going to make money on that in future dollars, if that makes sense, if you're following what I'm saying. So, yeah, man. So what is the next, what are your goals for the next 24 months?
What are my goals in the next 24 months? Honestly, it's kind of taking our portfolio and maximizing its potential.
Instead of growing unit size, unit count, you want to grow unit value of what you currently have.
Yeah, we have.
I like that.
We have enough to sustain. But if we focus and refine our operations and our systems and our processes, we can extract more cash flow and value out of what we already own, and it hopefully will be easier to make money on what we already have, because we can implement change immediately with our in-house, management companies and things like that, instead of going out and buying a new asset and kind of dealing with the unknown. It's kind of the devil and let's figure out the best way to operate it, and really kind of tighten down what we have going on in order to maximize the opportunity, right? I mean, because I hate to squander opportunities. Like, in your example earlier with the people that sell today because it's a bad point in time, I think that's squandering an opportunity. I think that you have to have that more long-term vision. You have to focus on operations. You have to focus on price per door and your, cash flow per door, and making sure that everything is kind of driving, and just actively staying intentful with your decision making on your current portfolio. Looking at options. We've already done the master insurance policy. Looking at potential refinances, looking at opportunity exits. I mean, there's a million different ways you can go with the portfolio. So I think, with all that being said, the next 24 months, I'm really hoping to kind of solidify our systems and operations in order to kind of not have to bang my head against the wall all the time, and try to take. Passive is not the right word, but less of my own, more automated, less of my own input in order to make sure that the deal is going to cross the finish line. Trying to empower people to make decisions on their own, to continue to make sure that we have things in place where I don't have to follow up, or things that are done automatically, right? Like any proper business would have. So we focus on those things, and then as some of the debt we have that is maturing, we start looking at some exit, and then just roll in the money. And we do a lot of syndications. We use family office money. We work with a private equity firm out of New Jersey. I mean, we have a lot of access to capital, but ultimately, I would like to start exiting some of these deals and taking 100% of the money and just reinvesting it myself, and kind of removing some of that investor pref, or putting myself in that investor pref situation, and just compounding the net worth growth and the capital growth and the cash flow growth and things like that.
No, I mean, I think it's really, really smart. I think you're looking at ways to reduce headache and liability and heartache and all the other things that come with it, as well as not having to take on more risk, right? Like, I think people who just want to grow unit count, and I was one of them for a little bit until it smacked me in the face, but it's a lot ego driven. And for owning 1,700 units that you own right now, dude, getting another 1,000 units isn't going to change your life.
Nope.
Right? But it will. You got to sign up more loans. It's going to create more liability. You got to raise more money. It's going to take more work, versus these other properties that you already know, that you already are on the debt, that you already have raised the money on, instead of just controlling the controllable in this situation can increase your net worth probably by far more than just growing unit count, right? And if you're focused on this and increasing an extra, dude, let's do some quick math. If you can get an extra NOI of $100 per door per month times 1,600 units times 12 months, that's an extra $1.9 million.
In straight cash flow, because your expenses are already there and your debt's already there.
At a 6 cap, that increases the property value by $32 million.
Yep.
By how do we obsess over getting an extra $100 to the per unit per month to the bottom line of this portfolio? If you can do that, you increase the portfolio value by $32 million without taking on any more debt, any more liability, any more risk, any more operational headaches, not being stretched too thin, without hiring more staff or any of those other things. And if you own 30% of that, it increases your net worth by $10 million without having to go and buy any more doors.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Dude, it's exciting stuff, man. I'm excited to spend the day with you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm
proud
stoked.
of you, proud of everything that you've
Thanks,
done,
man.
and just excited to continue watching the journey, brother.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously you're a huge catalyst in my life. I appreciate everything that you've done for the community and all the value that you've brought with all the free content that you have. I mean, the keys to the kingdom I've said this before, like you've given the keys to the kingdom to anybody that's willing to listen, but you still got to do the work, right? And I like to think that you gave me the keys and I did the work, and now we're sitting here today having this conversation because of it. So just don't want that to be lost on you, that, I know it's difficult to do a lot of social media stuff and it takes a lot of time and commitment and expense, but it brings a ton of value to people that you might not even know, right?
I appreciate
and that's
that,
the best
brother.
part.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for being here on the Legacy Podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of that. Make sure you're connected with Tim Vitale. Make sure you're checking out and you join the Making Moves in Multifamily, his Facebook group, so that way you can plug in, stay connected with his network as well. And if you want to meet Tim in person and some of the other rock stars in Legacy Family, come and check out Legacy Family Mastermind. We'd love to extend an invitation for you to come out to one of our summits, come out to one of our meetups, meet the group, meet the crew, see what everybody has going on and how we can help you scale your portfolio, scale your business, and build you a better lifestyle that you're looking for. So appreciate you guys being here. If you would, like, comment, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next week on the Legacy Podcast.